Foundations of Faith. Olivia Bennett was 23 when she married James, both of them bright-eyed art school graduates with more dreams than dollars. Their wedding had been simple, a courthouse ceremony followed by dinner at the little Italian place where they'd had their first date. No grand gestures or expensive rings, just promises that felt unbreakable. "We're investing in each other," James had said, kissing her forehead as they shared a plate of tiramisu. "Everything else will follow." And follow it did. Over 10 years, they transformed James' photography hobby into Bennett Visual Arts, a boutique creative agency that had grown from their spare bedroom to a renovated warehouse downtown with 30 employees. Olivia had been the one to secure their first major client, negotiating the contract while James took the photographs. She had managed their finances through the lean months, sometimes skipping meals to make sure they could pay their assistant. She had been the steady hand guiding their growth, the pragmatic balance to James's creative vision. "We're like two hands working together," she'd tell people when asked about their success. "James creates and I build." Their partnership had always felt equitable until last year. Success had changed James in subtle ways that gradually became impossible to ignore. It started with small things: dinners missed without calls, texts answered hours later, less interest in their tradition of Sunday morning coffee on the balcony. Then came the perfume Olivia didn't wear, lingering on his collar, the business trips that seemed unnecessarily extended, and the password newly added to his phone. "You're being paranoid," he told her when she finally asked if something was wrong. "The business is expanding. I'm busy, that's all." Olivia wanted to believe him. She had invested a decade of her life into this marriage, into building something meaningful together. She had postponed her own dreams of opening a gallery featuring emerging artists, always telling herself there would be time later, after they'd secured their foundation. The first concrete evidence came on a rainy Tuesday when James claimed to be meeting with a client downtown. Olivia had been working late at their office, finishing quarterly projections, when she received an email from their cloud storage service, alerting her to new uploads. Thinking it might be the portfolio James was preparing, she clicked on the notification. The photos weren't of architecture or landscapes. They were intimate snapshots of James with a woman Olivia recognized immediately, Vanessa Reed, the marketing consultant they'd hired 6 months earlier. The timestamp showed the images were taken during a weekend James had claimed was a photography retreat in the mountains. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her wedding ring catching the light from her monitor. She could confront him now, call and demand explanations. Instead, she took a deep breath and closed the laptop. After a decade of supporting James, of building his dreams alongside her own, she deserved more than a heated argument. She deserved a reckoning. Over the next 3 weeks, Olivia said nothing about the photos. She watched James more carefully, noting how his eyes lingered on Vanessa during meetings, how they seemed to find excuses to work late together. She noticed the text messages that made him smile in a way he hadn't smiled at her in months. Then came his suggestion about their anniversary, now just a week away. "I thought we could do something special this year," he said over breakfast, not quite meeting her eyes. "Dinner at Luminous. We could invite some friends, make it a proper celebration of how far we've come." "Friends?" asked Olivia quietly, stirring her tea. James nodded, looking at his phone rather than at her. "Just a small group, the key people who've been part of our success." Olivia watched him, this man she had loved for a third of her life, and felt a strange calm settle over her. She said, "That sounds perfect!" And she meant it in ways James couldn't begin to understand.
Whispers and Shadows. The week before their anniversary, Olivia moved through her days with methodical precision. Each morning, she maintained their routine: coffee prepared exactly as James liked it, pleasant conversation about their upcoming projects, a kiss goodbye that felt like muscle memory. If James noticed anything different in her demeanor, he didn't mention it. But beneath the surface, Olivia was transforming. She spent her lunch breaks meeting with a financial advisor, carefully untangling their joint accounts and documenting her contributions to their business. Evenings, when James was working late, she cataloged evidence of his affair, receipts for hotel rooms charged to the company credit card, time-stamped photos from social media placing him and Vanessa at the same locations. "Mrs. Bennett, you understand you're entitled to quite a bit more than this," her lawyer, Eleanor Reeves, had asked during their confidential meeting. "I understand what I'm legally entitled to," Olivia had replied, her voice steady, "but I'm more interested in what I need rather than what I could take." On Wednesday afternoon, 3 days before the anniversary dinner, Olivia encountered Vanessa in the office kitchen. The younger woman was leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone with manicured nails the color of crushed berries. "Olivia, I was just thinking about Saturday," Vanessa said, her smile too bright. "James mentioned you're celebrating 10 years. That's incredible." "It certainly feels like a milestone," Olivia replied, maintaining eye contact as she prepared her tea. "I can't wait. James mentioned Luminae's has that incredible champagne selection." Vanessa tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, revealing an earring Olivia recognized. It matched a necklace James had claimed he'd bought for his sister's birthday. "James has always had excellent taste," said Olivia, her voice betraying nothing of the cold clarity washing over her, "in many things." That evening, Olivia sat alone in their spacious living room, surrounded by photographs of their life together, hiking in Colorado, sailing off the coast of Maine, cutting the ribbon at the opening of their first real office. She removed each frame from the wall, carefully extracting the photographs and sorting them into two piles. Images of landscapes and architecture, James's professional work, she set aside. Images of their journey together, she placed in a leather portfolio she'd purchased that afternoon. When James returned home after midnight, smelling of Vanessa's distinct perfume and whiskey, Olivia was already in bed, pretending to sleep. She listened to him move through our bedroom, heard the shower run, felt him slip into bed beside her without touching her, as had become their norm. "Liv," he whispered, apparently checking if she was awake. "Are you sleeping?" She regulated her breathing, giving no indication she heard him. After a moment, she heard the soft blue glow of his phone illuminating his face, the nearly silent tapping of messages being sent. Thursday and Friday passed in a blur of preparations. Olivia visited her favorite boutique and selected a dress the color of burgundy wine, arranged for her hair to be styled, confirmed details with the restaurant. She moved with the deliberate grace of someone executing a long-planned strategy. "You seem different," observed Naomi, her closest friend from college, over coffee Friday morning. "Calmer, somehow." "I've made some decisions," Olivia replied, watching steam rise from her cup, "about what I want the next 10 years to look like." "Does James know?" Olivia smiled, a genuine expression that hadn't appeared in weeks. "He will, tomorrow."
He anniversary charade. Saturday evening arrived with perfect autumn weather. Crisp air, clear skies, a sunset painting the city in hues of gold and amber. Olivia arrived at Lumine's 30 minutes early, as arranged with the restaurant manager. The private dining room overlooked the river, the city skyline providing a glittering backdrop. Crystal glasses caught the light from the candles she had specifically requested, creating prisms across the white tablecloths. "Everything is exactly as you specified, Mrs. Bennett," the manager assured her, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "The champagne is chilling, and we've arranged the seating according to your diagram." "Thank you, Daniel. And the envelope I sent over." "Secured in my office, to be brought out with dessert." Olivia nodded satisfied and took her place at the head of the table, not beside James, where he would expect her to sit, but opposite him, a subtle shift in dynamics that would be the first of many surprises. The guests began arriving at 7. 4 couples, their earliest supporters and closest friends in the industry, expressed confusion at the intimate setup, having expected a larger gathering. Olivia greeted each with warm embraces, fielding questions about James's whereabouts with practiced ease. "He's bringing a colleague who's been instrumental in our recent success," she explained, the words bitter yet somehow freeing on her tongue. At 7:25, precisely 5 minutes before the reservation time, James arrived with Vanessa at his side. He faltered momentarily upon seeing the gathered friends, a flash of something, guilt, panic, crossing his features before his professional charm asserted itself. "Everyone's here already. Sorry we're running behind," he announced, guiding Vanessa forward with his hand resting inappropriately low on her back. "You all know Vanessa from marketing, right? She's been working miracles with our new campaign." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees as understanding dawned on their friends' faces. Olivia watched the reactions: raised eyebrows, uncomfortable glances, Teresa Williams squeezing her husband's hand in silent communication. "James, Vanessa, I was just telling everyone how instrumental you've both been lately." Dinner proceeded with excruciating pleasantness. Olivia engaged everyone in conversation, speaking warmly of past collaborations and future projects. She sipped her water while others indulged in the expensive wine James had ordered. She noticed how he leaned toward Vanessa when speaking, how their hands occasionally brushed beneath the table, and how he barely looked in Olivia's direction. "Remember when we landed the Westridge account?" Olivia asked the table during the main course. "James was so nervous about the pitch that he spilled coffee all over his shirt 5 minutes before. I had to run 6 blocks to buy him a new one." Their friends laughed, sharing their own stories of the early days. Vanessa contributed nothing, her discomfort growing more evident as the narrative of James and Olivia's journey unfolded through their friends' anecdotes. "You've always been his backbone," Marcus Chen, their first investor, said to Olivia. "The business wouldn't exist without you." James cleared his throat. "We've all contributed in different ways. Speaking of contributions, Vanessa's ideas for the Eastlake project have been revolutionary." Olivia just smiled, watching the subtle exchange of glances among their friends as they registered James's transparent attempt to shift attention to his mistress. The evening progressed with mounting tension beneath the veneer of celebration. By the time dessert arrived, individual chocolate soufflés with gold leaf, another of Olivia's specific requests, James was drinking heavily, his arm draped possessively around Vanessa's chair. "Perhaps it's time for a toast," Olivia suggested, her voice carrying across the table with surprising authority. She nodded to Daniel, who appeared with flutes of champagne for everyone. James, seeming relieved at the chance to steer the evening, stood quickly and raised his glass. "To 10 remarkable years," he began, his businessman's voice taking over, "to growth, success, and new horizons. Bennett Visual Arts has exceeded all our expectations, and I'm grateful to everyone who's been a part of this journey." He paused, glancing briefly at Olivia before his eyes returned to Vanessa. "Especially to those who understand my vision for the future." The toast hung in the air, hollow and self-congratulatory. Olivia rose slowly, her glass held delicately between her fingers. Every eye turned to her, the room silent except for the soft classical music playing in the background. It was time. The crescendo. 10 years, Olivia began, her voice quiet but unwavering. 3,650 days of building something together. She took a small sip of champagne, her eyes meeting each person's gaze around the table. "When James and I started, we had nothing but student loans and a second-hand camera. Our first office was our kitchen table." She smiled at their gathered friends, deliberately excluding James from her focus. "Many of you were there. You saw how we grew, step by step. You saw the nights I stayed up balancing our books while James slept. You saw me take side jobs designing websites when we couldn't make payroll." Her voice remained conversational, as if discussing the weather. "You saw me believe in him when no one else would." The room had gone completely still. Even the waitstaff had paused by the walls, sensing the gravity of the moment. James shifted uncomfortably, reaching for his wine rather than his champagne. "What you didn't see,"
Olivia continued, were the sacrifices that happen in private, the dreams deferred, the blind trust given, the overlooked signs. She turned her gaze directly to James for the first time. The photographs uploaded to our shared cloud storage from hotel rooms in the mountains during supposed photography retreats. A sharp intake of breath came from someone, perhaps Vanessa, perhaps one of their friends. James's face drained of color. "Olivia!" he started, but she raised her hand slightly, and, to everyone's surprise, including her own, he fell silent. "I'm not here to create a scene," she said, reaching beneath her seat and retrieving a slim leather portfolio. "I'm here to mark an ending and a beginning." She opened the portfolio and removed several documents, sliding them across the table to James. "These papers transfer my ownership shares of Bennett Visual Arts to you, James. My lawyer has the originals. I've also withdrawn my name from our joint accounts, taking only what I contributed over the last decade." Murmurs rippled through their friends as James stared at the papers, his expression fluctuating between shock and confusion. "You can't just... This is ridiculous. We need to talk privately." "We don't, actually," Olivia replied calmly. "Everything that needed saying has been said through your actions and now through mine." She nodded to Daniel, who approached with a sealed envelope. Olivia took it and placed it on the table between them. "This contains information about a gallery space on Marlowe Street. I've signed a 3-year lease, beginning next month. Bennett Gallery will showcase emerging artists who deserve the kind of chance we once needed." Her eyes were bright but tearless. "The dream I set aside to build yours." She raised her glass one last time. "So yes, to 10 years of lessons learned, and to the future. May we each find what we truly deserve." Olivia took one last sip, set down her glass, and gathered her purse. She moved around the table, embracing each of their stunned friends, whispering brief words of affection to each. When she reached Vanessa, she simply nodded politely. To James, she said nothing at all. As she walked toward the exit, Marcus Chen stood and raised his glass. "To Olivia Bennett, the true architect of everything in this room." One by one, each of their friends stood, glasses raised to her. James remained seated, Vanessa frozen beside him, as Olivia walked out of the restaurant with measured steps, her back straight, her head high, leaving behind the weight of unmet expectations and betrayal. Outside, the night air filled her lungs with a sensation of possibility she hadn't felt in years.
Renaissance. The first 3 months after leaving James were harder than Olivia had anticipated. Despite her careful preparations, there were moments of paralyzing doubt. Nights spent staring at her apartment ceiling, wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake. The business world, it seemed, had chosen sides, and not always hers. "Did you hear?" her former assistant Zoe asked during one of their coffee meetings. "James lost the Kingsley account yesterday. Apparently, Mr. Kingsley's wife heard what happened and convinced him to take his business elsewhere." Olivia had mixed feelings about such news. She hadn't left to punish James or to see him fail. She had left to reclaim herself. The gallery renovation consumed her days and distracted her from dwelling on the past. The space on Marlowe Street, once a forgotten bookstore, transformed under her direction. She hired local craftspeople to build custom display pedestals, installed lighting that would showcase each piece perfectly, and painted the walls a soft white that seemed to breathe with the changing daylight. 6 weeks after the anniversary dinner, Naomi arrived at the gallery with a bottle of wine and takeout containers from their favorite Thai restaurant. "You've created something magical here," she said, looking around the nearly completed space. "But have you heard from him at all?" Olivia nodded, carefully unwrapping spring rolls. "His lawyer contacted mine last week. He's contesting the share transfer." "That bastard!" Naomi muttered. "It's actually good news. It means I struck the right nerve. He can contest all he wants, but the documentation is comprehensive. 10 years of receipts, contracts signed with my name, clients I brought in personally. And Vanessa? A small smile crossed Olivia's face. Left 3 weeks after the dinner, according to Marcus. Apparently, a sinking ship doesn't hold the same appeal as a successful one. They ate in companionable silence for a while before Naomi spoke again. You know, I always thought you were the lucky one having such a passionate marriage. Now I realize you were carrying him all along. Olivia considered this. I don't think that's entirely fair. We built something valuable together, and there were good years. I'm not erasing those just because the ending was ugly. This perspective, balanced, reflective, without bitterness, became Olivia's signature approach as she rebuilt her life. She focused on the gallery opening, scheduled for exactly 6 months after the anniversary dinner. She traveled to student art shows at regional universities, discovering overlooked talents. She developed relationships with critics and collectors who appreciated her genuine passion for emerging artists. 3 days before the gallery opening, a large envelope arrived at her apartment. Inside was a formal notice that James had dropped his legal challenges, along with a handwritten letter. I won't pretend to deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. Not just a marriage, but a partnership that was the foundation of everything good in my life. The business is struggling without you. I am struggling without you. But I recognize that is the consequence of my choices. Olivia folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. It brought no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that some chapters must fully close before new ones can begin. The opening night of Bennett Gallery exceeded all expectations. The space glowed with the energy of 7 emerging artists whose work Olivia had carefully curated. Sculptures that played with light and shadow, photographs capturing intimate human moments, paintings that challenged conventional perspectives. More than 200 people attended, including several prominent collectors who purchased pieces before the evening ended. Near midnight, as the crowd thinned, Olivia found herself standing beside a striking abstract painting by a 24-year-old artist from a small town 3 hours away. "This one speaks to you, doesn't it?" asked a voice beside her. She turned to find an unfamiliar man studying her and the artwork with equal interest. "I've been watching you return to it all evening." "I admit, it reminds me of something." She gazed at the bold strokes of color emerging from darkness. "The moment when you realize your life is about to change completely." "Bennett Gallery," he said, glancing at the elegant sign above the entrance. "Are you the Bennett?" "Olivia," she replied, extending her hand. "Julian Mercer, art critic for The Observer. Though tonight I'm just an admirer of what you've built here. This curation tells a story, one about transformation and resilience." She smiled, recognizing the truth in his observation. "That's exactly what I hope to convey." Later that night, after everyone had left, Olivia walked slowly through her gallery. Each piece represented not just the artist who created it, but her own journey of reclamation. She stopped before the abstract painting that had caught her attention repeatedly throughout the evening and read the small card beside it, "Phoenix Rising" by Elise Montgomery. Beneath the title was the artist's statement. "Sometimes we must burn completely before discovering what remains is exactly what we need to become." Olivia touched the card gently, thinking of the journey from that devastating anniversary dinner to this moment of creation. 6 months ago, she had walked away from a decade of her life, leaving behind the familiar for an uncertain future. Now she stood in the physical manifestation of her own rebirth. Outside, the city lights glimmered against the darkness. Olivia locked the gallery door behind her, her reflection in the glass overlaying the word Bennett in elegant script. For the first time since leaving James, she felt no residual ache, no lingering question about her choice. The woman who had sat quietly through that anniversary dinner, who had planned her exit with meticulous care, who had walked away with dignity intact, she was gone too, transformed by her own courage into someone stronger, wiser, and finally, completely free. Olivia stepped into the night, her path forward illuminated not by what she had lost, but by all she had discovered she could become.